My friends, especially when I meet new people, are always very surprised when I tell them that I am not an extrovert. I am very much so an introvert. And people who know me really well can understand how that's possible. But people who only see me in, I guess, social settings would never, ever guess it. I've told quite a few people this before and said, no, like I'm actually an introvert, and they do not believe me. And honestly, that's okay. Like, I don't care, but it is interesting to me because I tend to approach my life with I don't know, I guess I would say that I am an extroverted introvert. I'm very much so an introvert. I get my energy from being with myself, from being introverted, but when I'm out with people, as long as I have that energy, like I am very good at being out and about with people. I love talking. I love social settings. But I'm also that person who, when you say, oh, we're going to a party at 9 p.m., I say, yeah, I'm going to be in bed sleeping. That's just how I am. And that doesn't mean I'll never go to a party at 9 p.m. But it does mean that quite a few times I'm going to tell you, thanks for the invite, but I'm going to be in bed with my cat snuggling. And honestly, it's like kind of surprising to people. I will always be the silly human being that I am. I will always be that way. And I actually did a post recently on Instagram. It is Suicide Prevention Month. And as a lot of you guys know, I've struggled with mental health. I've struggled with a lot of issues. And so one of the reasons I think why I am this upbeat person, always offering to do things, always raising my hand, always having fun. Like, I did not used to be like that. I was definitely a kid. I was out and about. I loved doing things, but I was that shy person. Never raised my hands, never really took risks. And I think that shifted for me once I recovered from panic disorder, and as I've continued to get to know what I struggle with, especially my PMDD and panic disorder, because in the end, I have been through a lot. In the end, I know what it's like to not feel like myself, to feel like I've lost the person that I am, to feel lost. And so honestly, the greatest gift I've ever gotten was to be able to be myself again. I had this year where I was in a state of psychosis and I didn't even know who I was anymore. I mean, I described it as feeling like this monster was inside of me. Like, I looked like myself, but I didn't act like myself. I didn't feel like myself. And so when I recovered from that, really, truly, that was one of the greatest gifts to me. The fact that I really was able to value who I am because of that, because I knew what it was like to not feel like myself, to not be myself, and all of a sudden that made me value myself more. I missed myself a lot, and I realized, wait, I actually am like a pretty cool person. You know, I'm not for everyone, obviously, but I do really value the human being that I am. I do really value the way that I do things, and I do really love who I am. And I'm constantly changing, I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly trying to do better. I'm constantly becoming a better version of myself. At least I like to think that I am. I saw something recently. It was by Brittany Leigh Ball, who I've followed for years, and she by far is one of probably my biggest inspirations, along with a few other people, especially when it comes to finding yourself, taking care of yourself, being able to be honest online, being able to have that safe space online. Point aside, all of that aside, I saw something from her, and she was saying, you know what, no one can ever tell me I'm not cool. And you know what, if they do, like, I know I'm cool. I know I'm cool because I have personality. I have all these little things about me, these little quirks. I am that fun person. Like, I have personality, so you can't tell me I'm not cool because I know I'm cool. And that really was like, yeah, you know what? Like, there's the whole thing about being delusional is what makes you love life, but I really, in a way, believe that that is true. I guess I wouldn't really call it delusional. I mean, yes, that's what people are saying these days and stuff, but I honestly wouldn't even call it delusional. Before that was a thing, I mainly just called it like being yourself, being your inner child, like going for it. Because I think that especially when you think of the word delusional, it's like, well, like, you know, you don't want to be too far off in your own world where you're not seeing what's actually happening. You want to stay safe, all of these things. But also, I think it's just a matter of being your inner child, right? When you are a child, all of these things, all of these social expectations, all of these pressures on you, like those aren't really there the same way that they are in your adult life. And we tend to lose that imagination, that child wonder, that excitement, that like playing and having fun in your free time type of thing. And that's what I don't want to lose. That's what I'm slowly starting to try and remind myself of and become in my daily life. And I think I do a pretty good job about that. And I think that's why a lot of times people think that I'm a lot more extroverted than I am, or they are always, you know, having fun hanging around, because I really value that inner child. I'm going to be that person who decides to walk in the middle of the street when there's no cars around. I'm going to be that person who shares my voice. I'm going to be that person who goes out and dances in the rain. I'm going to be that person whose laugh is louder than everyone else's, which I started realizing lately, and I can't decide how I feel about that, but apparently I think I laugh a lot louder than I thought. I'm going to be that person who makes jokes and stuff in the correct moments, right? But I'm going to be that person because I know what it's like to not be that person. I know what it's like to lose every bit of being of myself, to not know who I am anymore. And that's when I realized how much, like, yeah, I value myself. And you should value yourself too, right? I shouldn't have had to go through that experience to realize the true depth of the human being that I am. I shouldn't have had to go through that experience to value who I am, to love who I am. And also in that experience, I basically had to shut down all expectations, all social expectations, all thoughts of who I should be, all thoughts of how I should act, because I could not actually physically do those things anymore. I couldn't walk in a straight line anymore. Like those things they just were non-existent. And so to basically get all of that shut down and wonder, wow, like I'm completely lost. When I got that back, I didn't really know if I ever would get myself back. So getting myself back was the greatest gift. And that's something that I don't want people to have to go through in order to be able to love the person that they are, in order to be able to be the person that they are, to be the person that they love, and to be able to love every version of themselves, not just the current version, but that inner child too. To be able to let yourself, you know, your inner child come out and play every so often. To be able to allow yourself to just succumb to, yeah, life is sucky sometimes, and also like I want to make the best of it, because if I make the best of it, then I'm doing my best, and my best allows me to keep going forward. If I'm seeing all the negative things, I'm gonna feel negative and I'm gonna be pulled down. And of course, it is important to be aware of what's going on in your life, right? Life sucks right now. This country sucks right now. There's so many things that I'm terrified for, right? And also, I do my best to be aware of those and to speak my voice and to do what I can, while also part of what I can do is becoming the best version of myself. Part of what I can do in this messy world is to do my best to be the best that I can, to take care of myself, because if we're all down about it, if we're all suffering, if we're all hurt, how can we take care of each other, right? I think it's the same thing. It's not just a for yourself type of thing. It's not just because you want to be able to follow your dreams, be in your goals, all of these different things. You want to be yourself. You want to be who you are and have that wonder and awe in life, because that is how you spread it to other people too. And in this moment where our country is, I feel like we need that a lot. And I'm talking about this as someone from the US, but no matter where you are in life, no matter where you are in terms of in the world, like we are all, it's a lot. It doesn't matter if you're, there's political stuff going on for you, human rights stuff, or just the simple, basic, everyday life stuff, because life sucks too. We are all, I think, a little scared right now, right? Life is scary. But to be doing our best to stay this being with wonder and awe and excitement, and doing your best to love yourself in a world where love does not seem to be around very often, that's what changes it for people. I know for me, seeing that other people could be themselves, seeing that other people could be the true beings that they are, could honor themselves, their inner child, while also being aware of the stuff that's going on around them. Like, those, I think, are some of the most powerful people. I'm still working on it. I want to keep working on it. But those people who can do those things, that's beautiful to me. That is incredible to me. And that takes a lot of emotional maturity too. And I think emotional maturity is something that we don't see enough of in this life, unfortunately. My goal is just to do my best to be the best that I can. And so, yeah, if you want to be silly and people are looking at you weirdly, that's on them, not you. If you feel like going and having fun and people think that you're cringy, that's on them, not you. I even made myself this promise once upon a time when I was really struggling with my self-confidence. I told myself that I was going to every day do something outside of my comfort zone, even if that meant compliment someone's shirt because I really liked it, or if that meant dancing in the middle of the street where anyone could see me, or if that meant raising my hand for a question in class in high school at the time that I didn't really know if my answer was correct. It was time to do something that was outside of my comfort zone that I could feel like maybe I made a fool of myself for, that maybe I made a mistake for, maybe I'm going to feel embarrassed. But it's getting over that embarrassment and being able to be yourself. Like, where does embarrassment come from? It comes from, the brain, but it comes from this idea of what you should be. It comes from this idea of just social expectations, pretty much. And so being able to get over that embarrassment is being able to maybe push that expectation a little bit, to maybe be yourself a little bit more, to maybe say, hey, what happens if I decide to do it this way? What happens if I decide to do something that makes me happy rather than what maybe is expected to happen? All of these different things. By challenging yourself to do that, by challenging yourself to be better, by challenging yourself to be more authentic to yourself, all of a sudden I realized I still get embarrassed, right? I still make decisions that I think, wow, that was really, that was dumb. I'm not gonna, that was, I still embarrass myself all the time. I still question myself all the time, right? But the amount of embarrassment, the amount of times where I question, it was almost this decision fatigue or paralyzation almost of I don't even know what to do because what if I embarrass myself, right? And that has decreased a lot. I now am the person who, volunteers to go first on something. I am the person who I think is able to help others when I know what I'm doing. I am that person who's willing to make mistakes. And I think that it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And suddenly that pressure and that fear has decreased a lot over the years. So it's taken a while, but I feel much more in tune with who I am now that I have known what it's like to not be myself. And I think that there are ways to get to that point without going through a huge disorder. I think that challenging yourself, reminding yourself, what would my inner child do in this point? If you want to go do something, if you're excited to go do something, but you're afraid of how people will judge you, go for it. Do it. Because that, I think, is ultimately what I knew that I was grateful to be myself, but what actually allowed me to embody that and be myself was by pushing myself, by setting myself up for failure, honestly. Because I realized how many times I didn't fail then. You'll be surprised how many times you don't fail. And it's amazing. It's really eye-opening because you realize all of a sudden, wait, it's actually not that bad. If I do something specifically out of expecting to get rejected, to get people rolling their eyes at me, to fail, then all of a sudden, if I fail, I think, yeah, good for me. I did and I still did it. Good for me. That was my goal. And I think, suddenly the embarrassment of that is it's not gone, but it's decreased because that's what I was expecting. Because that was that was my goal, was to go embarrass myself. And then eventually those kind of things happen and you don't get embarrassed anymore. And you realize what is
you and what's not. Because sometimes there are things where you do and you're like, yeah, that's not really my vibe. There are other times where you realize like, wow, this really reminds me of who I am. This is my inner child here. And all of a sudden I do feel like I am more in tune with myself than I used to be. Not completely. I don't know if that's ever possible. So when people tell me, wow, I can't believe you're not extroverted, you're an introvert, I say, well, I just know who I am and I just know how to love myself and I know how to be bold when I'm able to, when I'm in the right mindset. I think it's an important thing. I think it's an important thing to stay crazy sometimes, to be yourself, to be delusional. Because honestly, isn't that just what living is?